Welcome everybody to this first webinar in SmartEnCity project. Today my name is David Drysdale. I'm from Aalborg University and I'll be presenting with Brian van Mathiesen, who is a professor at Aalborg University, and we also have Simon Sørensen from PlanEnergy, and he will be here to answer any questions at the end of the webinar. The topic of the webinar today is strategic energy planning in countries and cities. I'll give you a brief overview of the webinar. We'll begin with an introduction to the SmartEnCity project. Then we'll go into who is the Sustainable Energy Group at Aalborg University, which is the group that Brian and I work at. We will talk about why do we need strategic energy planning and what is strategic energy planning, and we'll finish with a summary of the webinar and then an introduction to the next webinars to be held next year. So the SmartEnCity project is a smart city project funded by the EU Horizon 2020 program. It is a project which is coordinated by Fundación Tecnalia Research and Innovation, and it has 35 partners from 6 countries. It involves 3 cities, lighthouse cities, from Vitoria-Gasteiz in Spain, Sonneborg in Denmark, and Tartu in Estonia. In each of these cities, different smart city initiatives are being implemented in the fields of renewable energy, energy efficiency, and transport and ICT. The idea of the project is to develop strategies for other European cities that can be replicated throughout Europe. And in SmartEnCity, there will be different approaches to implementing the different initiatives, and different business models will be developed that can be used to initiate the different technologies in other European cities. The project will also be developing a SmartEnCity network, and this network will contain different European cities so they can share information and learn from the SmartEnCity project. The purpose of these webinars is that we are sharing knowledge from the partners that are involved in the SmartEnCity project, and because a lot of the partners already have knowledge about energy system analysis and renewable energy, and a lot of this information can be shared now before the SmartEnCity project has made a lot of progress. And also, the purpose of the webinars is to attract new city members to the SmartEnCity network. All the webinars are available online, and the slides from the webinars are also available online on the smartencity.eu website. The webinars are for any interested people or groups in smart city development, which includes city planners, policymakers, private companies, government, researchers, and so on. The topics of the webinars, we have this first webinar is about strategic energy planning in countries and cities, and this is setting a sort of framework for the remaining webinars, which will go into more detail about city energy planning. The next webinar will be about city level energy planning, which will be in the context of the national energy system, but doing local planning and what needs to be done in the city itself. The next webinars will be about specific initiatives that are done within the cities, for example, new energy supply technologies, renovating buildings, transport, and also how do we get citizens involved in the smart city development. The second webinar will be held in February next year, and the remaining webinars will be held before summer in 2017. And now I'll hand you over to Brian van Mathiesen, who will talk about the energy group at Aalborg University.
Hello everybody, I'm Brian Mathiesen from Aalborg University. I would like to tell you a bit about why we are involved in the SmartEnCity project and how we can contribute to your transition towards low carbon cities. Our work in our research group is concerned with energy planning, and we have more than 30 years of experience going from local level to national and international level regarding the design and implementation of sustainable or renewable energy systems. Today, our research focuses on three main items. The first item is to conduct and supply tools and methodologies for energy system analysis, both locally and nationally, as well as internationally. We also, in this part, use geographical information systems to harvest knowledge about heat demands and renewable energy sources on a geographical level. The second part of our research focus is to conduct feasibility studies about the socioeconomics of renewable energy systems, or about the impacts on climate change, health, as well as job creation and overall economy. The third part of our research is concerned with how to implement these strategies or feasible energy system designs. This could be public regulations in regards to building codes, PV installations, or local ownership models for wind turbines. We have a number of projects within Denmark and the EU that relate to SmartEnCity. For example, we have conducted long-term energy visions in collaboration with Copenhagen Municipality and Aalborg Municipality. We are also engaged in large research centers such as cities, which focus on city-level tools and methodologies for renewable energy, as well as a larger European project called Heat Roadmap Europe, which is focused on renewable heating and cooling strategies for the 14 largest EU countries, which will provide also local input for cities within those countries. In our group, we also develop a free online planning tool, which is called Energy Plan, that can be used in both in different levels and in different geographical levels. We are very engaged in developing tools and methods so that we can have our knowledge spread into different parts of society. Our role in the SmartEnCity project will be to contribute with this knowledge into the different work packages, doing this kind of seminars and giving advice and contributing to different reports. We would also like to use this opportunity to spread our research through this kind of webinar and spread it throughout Europe. As a last part of our role in SmartEnCity, it is also to get your input from the local level. It is crucial for our research to get feedback on our tools and methodologies in order to enhance our recommendations in the future work that we're conducting. So why do we do strategic energy planning? This is the key issue of the webinar today. The challenge is that we would really like society to transition to a low carbon energy system, And we would like to do this with low cost, or the lowest possible costs, and also with a low resource consumption. Now, this is a huge challenge, as it is not an art to transfer into larger scale renewables. It is an art to do so with the aim also to have lower costs and a sustainable resource consumption. We need to transition cities to low carbon economies in order to decrease the country or EU or global carbon emissions. And this means that we need to somehow connect the international and national level to the local level city level planning issues. And this is why we need a more strategic approach, and this is what we call strategic energy planning, where we try to engage in several sectors. How can cities lower their carbon emissions? Well, there are three fundamental items that we can deal with. One thing which is very important is that if we can save a kilowatt hour of electricity or heat, we do not have to provide this with renewable energy, and often it is more feasible to make end-use energy savings than to provide new renewable energy for that demand. So energy savings is key in electricity, heat, and industry. Another part is that we want to increase the efficiency in the energy conversion. This can be providing new vehicles. Electric vehicles are more efficient than internal combustion engines. It can be to provide more efficient power plants, for example, transferring these into combined heat and power so we can use the excess heat. Or it can be to electrify the heat sector using heat pumps. The third part is to install renewable energy resources, such as in the electricity sector, wind power or photovoltaics. And in the heating sector, it could be solar thermal, geothermal, or the use of heat pumps, as well as other kind of resources. If we go into the renewable energy resources as an example, I will show you briefly why it is important to make an overall strategy in order to make a cost-effective transition on the city level that also contributes on the national level. The typical energy use is both in cities and on the national level divided into three parts. We have an electricity sector, we have a transport sector, and we have a heating sector. We want to try and go from today, where we have a low amount of renewables, into something which is carbon neutral, where we have a lot more renewable energy sources available. An example of how this is done is that we try to implement a lot of renewables in the electricity sector by implementing wind power and photovoltaics, or we combine this with using biomass CHP in the heating and electricity sector. By doing so, in order to be carbon neutral in the shorter run, we try to offset the fossil fuels use, especially in transport and heating, by over-investing in renewable energy on the electricity side, for example. This means that some of the electricity is not used locally, and we're then able to offset the CO2 emissions from the fossil part, for example, from the transport sector, which is harder to transfer into renewable energy in the short term. there is a problem in general with this approach. Once we start to aggregate the different cities, we will see that a lot of cities have this approach to being carbon neutral. This creates a problem on the national level or international level, as there's still a lot of fossil fuels in use, and all parts of society would like to export electricity and offset carbon emissions elsewhere. This means that everybody trying to become carbon neutral creates an integration problem and an economic problem on the national or international level. If we have, for example, here the example of Copenhagen wanting to be carbon neutral by 2025, Copenhagen has as one part chosen to implement a lot of wind power, and as a lot of wind power has to be installed to offset the transport sector, a lot of the wind power cannot be integrated locally and has to be used or exported in the national system if possible. This means that we still have fossil fuels in use with the connected carbon emissions from the transport sector mainly, and we may have a lot of unused electricity. Now, there are three problems that we will still have if all cities go towards carbon neutrality. This is not to say that being carbon neutral is a bad idea. This is just to say that there are improvements to be made to build on top of ambitions to be carbon neutral. Also, you can regard it as the first version, where you start by having the ambition of being carbon neutral, and then you go to version 2, where you try to become more based on renewable energy in a more integrated energy system. An example of how you can start thinking of this is to use the different storage options that are available in all parts of the energy system, both the electricity side, the thermal side or heating side, and as well as the gas sector or liquid fuel sector. I will just mention two items here, the electricity storage option and the thermal storage option. What you see on this graph is that the price of a thermal storage is about 100 times lower compared to the price of electricity storage options. Also, you can see that the efficiency of thermal storage is higher than electricity storage. This means that we need to start to look at the system from the end user perspective. If we take the thermal storage, we are able to have a lower cost energy system in general. We can implement thermal storage if we have a district heating grid. We can then use the thermal storage to use some of the electricity from the electricity side through an electric boiler or a heat pump and store the heat until the heat demand is present. You can also use individual heat pumps and household level heat storages in order to achieve some of this gain. On the other hand, if we start to want to integrate renewables in the electricity sector only, we will have to implement more expensive energy storage options such as batteries or pumped hydro storage. Also, in doing this, we will lose some of the renewables that we have produced in the electricity sector. The point is that there are cheap energy storage options available, but we have to look at both electricity, heating and transport together in order to identify these storage options.
Okay, so the overall picture we get is that we need better planning on the national level and at the local and regional level in order to be able to integrate renewable energy successfully. So, in summary, we need better planning in order to reduce end-use energy demand, since we need to reduce energy use because it makes it easier to integrate renewable energy. We need to ensure that the renewable energy we integrate is optimal, so that we are using all the renewable energy to its full potential. This means that we don't have expensive integration of renewable energy, and we're able to utilize all the energy it produces. In order to have the least cost outcomes from the energy transition, we need to have better planning, and this allows us also to maximize the benefits from the investments that we make into new technologies or new energy initiatives that we make. We also need to do better planning to place energy efficiency efforts in the right place, so that we save energy in some areas where it needs to be saved, and we still use energy in other areas, because we will have renewable energy being produced, which we still need to use within the system. We need better planning to achieve the expected outcomes. So we may have targets for achieving low carbon cities or regions, but to achieve these outcomes, we must have some sort of plan in order to get there. We also need better planning in order to realize all the opportunities that there are with the local energy resources, and also between regions. How can we have better inter-region collaborations in the future? And this leads us to the point, or the main part of the webinar, which is about what is strategic energy planning, and how can this allow us to get to the energy transition that we need to achieve. So, strategic energy plan it's basically a tool for planning and prioritizing different development and investment pathways for local energy demand and supply. So it's a way for us to identify what certain technologies and initiatives need to be taken in order to meet energy demand and to supply the right energy in order to have the most cost-effective system in the future. It's a voluntary tool. It's a tool for aligning national energy objectives with local municipal energy planning, meaning it takes any national targets or goals and tries to implement them within the local or regional level in order to achieve these goals, so that we have some sort of plan or strategy to be able to achieve the national energy objectives. It involves scenario analyses and long-term planning. So we need to do some sort of energy system analysis at the national level, regional levels, and city levels in order to make long-term plans on how we can transition in the next decades. And therefore, it also involves collaboration within and between cities and regions, and with the other actors in those areas, such as local businesses and citizens, and it can involve central government as well, but it doesn't necessarily have to involve central government in the beginning. Central government could be involved in longer term process. It creates an in-depth understanding of the energy challenges faced at the local level, and this is through looking at each municipality and each region and understanding the resources available and the energy system today and where it needs to go in the future. It brings increased understanding of the opportunities with local resources and between regions. So this is where it identifies what cities and regions, what resources they have, and how they can utilize these resources within a national energy strategy, and how they can share resources between the regions. And it involves developing some form of master plan, which is not a fixed plan from the beginning to finish, but is a framework from which cities and regions can develop their energy system in the future. So in Denmark, the case that we'll use today to show strategic energy planning, we have done research in the last few years on how Denmark can achieve the goal of 100% renewable energy. And this has led us to identify some key phases that need to be undertaken in order to make a strategic energy plan to achieve these long-term goals. We will go into detail with each phase, and I'll just introduce them now in this slide. So the first phase is to develop a concrete long-term national energy strategy. Phase 2 is to do detailed mapping of the contents of all municipal plans. And phase 3 is to then define goals for municipal and intermunicipal level within the strategic energy plan. Now, each of these phases are very important, but the idea is that the strategic plan should be developed over time, and it's a continuous improvement. So we don't make the perfect plan at the beginning, but we try to do our best with each of these phases, and then we improve over time. So that's why we say it's an iterative process from phase 1 to phase 3. And the phases can be done at different stages. For example, in phase 3, Copenhagen has already defined goals for becoming carbon neutral by 2025, and then we now need to put that in context of a larger or broader strategic energy plan in order to achieve that, and see how that can help Denmark achieve its goals for 100% renewable energy. So the first phase is develop a concrete long-term national energy strategy, and Brian will talk about this.
In phase 1, during strategic energy planning, you need to identify a national or international framework for which you want to relate local initiatives. Also, you need to deal with the different kind of sectors, all the different kind of sectors that are included in the energy sector. The first part in phase 1 is to conduct national level energy analysis. In some cases, this can be replaced by a long-term national goal of reducing carbon emissions by 80%, for example, having a renewables energy goal for 2030 or 2050. In Europe, it could be, in general, the 2020 European Union targets or the 2030 European Union targets. In the Danish case, the example is that there's a framework, a national target to go to 100% renewables in 2050, and there are different pathways to do this, but there is a goal in general to achieve this. Once you have the overall framework, you can start to identify different priorities and specific targets. This can of course be done on the national level, but In order to achieve the national level, a lot of stakeholders have to be included. And if you are from a local level authority or at a local planning level, you can identify the different objectives in the longer term national level that relates to you. On the local level, for example, it can be important to help implement energy savings, to use waste heat from power production in CHP plants, implement district heating, implement heat pumps, implement electric vehicles locally, etc. It is important to include all areas and all sectors, and not only to focus on, for example, the heating sector or the electricity sector. In strategic energy planning, we try to focus on all sectors in a more integrated approach. The third step is that we want to update this kind of analysis and strategy over time. So you should regard this as an incremental process where on the national or international level we try to improve the overall targets iteratively, and this, for example, has been done a number of years in the Danish context. If you don't have the national level, you can, as mentioned, replace them with the EU 2030 or EU 2050 goals. You can also have the targets that are set up in the UN Sustainable Development Goals for 2030, which have initiatives on energy and cities that can relate, that can be a framework for your local level strategic energy planning processes. If we take the example of the framework for Denmark, we have conducted different energy system analysis on the Danish level, and this Sankey diagram here shows an example of our calculations from 2011. What you see is a Sankey diagram that illustrates in the middle how electricity is a core part of the future energy supply. Together with biomass, this provides an option in 2050 in Denmark to be based on 100% renewable energy. One thing that is not easy to illustrate in a Sankey diagram is, again, how important energy savings are. The more energy savings you can conduct in the end demands of transport, electricity or heat or industry, the less renewable energy you have to provide. As mentioned before, it's important to integrate the different sectors in order to have flexibility in the use and conversion from electricity to heat or to transport services, as well as to use the cheaper energy storage options that we can see available in the thermal sector or the gas and liquid fuel sector. You can have a look at our homepage, smartenergysystems.eu, for more details on the national level targets.
Okay, so in phase 2, this is where we do detailed mapping of the contents of all municipal plans. And the idea is that in phase 1 we develop some sort of national level energy system analysis and understanding, and now we want to look at pulling together all the different municipalities and regions in order to be able to achieve these long-term goals for the national system. So the first step is to develop a network between the municipal governments and relevant actors in the regions and with central government if it's possible. In Denmark, the regional network was developed in the last few years, and this network is involves all the regions and municipalities in the country so that they can work together in order to achieve the end goal for Denmark. In the second step of this phase is then to look at or map all the content or the contents of the municipal plans of all the municipalities in the regions in terms of resources and goals and ambitions of the municipalities. This means that in the strategic plan we understand what municipalities have been doing, where they want to go, and what they could do differently in order to be able to work with other municipalities and to lead to a more effective energy system transition. Each municipality in Denmark provides knowledge about their region, and then this knowledge is also supported or developed by other actors. For example, Plan Energy do energy system analysis or a review of the energy system in the municipality or region in order for them to understand what is going on with their energy system and where they could go in the future. So this map of Denmark is showing all the different regions and the titles of the regional plans that they have developed for their region. And in each regional plan, they have different sections for the different municipalities within the region. And Brian will talk about phase 3 here.
In phase 3, we will try to define the goals for the municipals and intermunicipal level within the strategic energy planning processes. This is the last part or the last phase. First item we need to do is use the detailed mapping and content of within the municipal to define specific goals in the long-term strategy. The next phase is to assign these specific tasks to different actors. Now, these actors can be within the municipality, but they can also be external actors outside the municipality. The third part is then to implement these on the basis of the strategic energy plan. In the Danish context, regions or the regional level networks have facilitated a cooperation between municipalities. This ensures that there is a regional to local alignment and a local to the national level alignment, so that the targets on the national or international levels are met without going into a very local level strategy where you, for example, implement biogas plants in neighboring municipalities or have too low a level of wind power in your planning processes. This can help the local level planning to be able to know what their role is and how they best contribute to the overall level targets. The actors can be important to involve in order to be able to implement the different specific tasks. For example, there can be an engagement with the construction sector about doing energy savings in households, or you can engage with the agricultural sector to assist in identifying local biomass or biogas resources. Another important part of the local actors is the ownership, where it is easier and better to have a local involvement or a local ownership if you want to implement, for example, wind turbines or photovoltaics in the local community. Going to the Danish case again, a lot of things have been implemented on the local level with a regional coordination. In the period of 2014 to 2015, 14 specific partnership projects have been implemented within strategic energy planning, and there are reports available about the results of this. It's important to emphasize that this work has been done on a voluntary basis, but with financial support from the governmental level. An example is mid-energy strategy, where all the municipalities in this region have made a shared strategic energy plan for the municipalities, identifying the roles of municipalities with very large amount of inhabitants and dense urban areas to more agricultural-based rural municipalities.
Okay, so this brings us to near the end of the webinar, and I'm going to now give a very brief summary of where we've been and what we've talked about, and then I'll talk about the next webinars. So firstly, in the first part of the webinar, we talked about the problem we face, which is cities want to be low carbon, but in order to do this, we need to be able to integrate renewable energy, save energy, we need to store energy, and we need to create flexibility in the system. And to do all this, we need to think about cities as part of a wider energy system. And in order to do that, we have to make sure that we plan properly the certain roles that different municipalities and regions will have in this energy system transition. And without a proper plan, it could be costly and ineffective. For example, we showed Copenhagen, which is trying to integrate wind power, and at the moment, if that wind power was integrated into the system, then we would not be able to use a lot of the excess electricity in the rest of Denmark. So therefore, we need to plan for this excess, to use this excess electricity in Denmark. The opportunity we have is that there are numerous benefits that can be achieved through collaboration. Energy system knowledge is available today. It's been developed over the last few years and by different research organizations and companies, and it can be shared in these collaborations. The networks are being developed now. For example, in SmartEnCity, we are developing a network, and this purpose is to share knowledge and create collaborations between municipalities, within countries, and between countries. Today, strategic energy planning is being done, and this has been shown in this webinar in Denmark. It's being done, and we can learn from these experiences. We can learn from the mistakes and from the successful activities that have been happening. And strategic energy planning can be improved continuously over time. So we don't have to have the perfect plan at the beginning, but we can improve it over time as we learn more. And this was shown through the different phases, where we tried to explain that these phases can be done in different order, and they can be built upon each other in different ways, as long as we are creating, in the end, a strategic plan that will lead us to a highly renewable energy systems. So we say at the end of this webinar, that we should start with imperfect planning. So we can begin with, for example, an analysis of the energy system in order to identify priorities and goals. We can try to establish a communication channel with neighboring cities and municipalities and to the central administration We can help central administration by providing local bottom-up knowledge about the energy system, needs and potentials. We can then push for the right framework conditions from above, from the local level. And we should continue with our current initiatives that we've already started in energy efficiency and using local resources. But we should try and put these in context of a broader strategic energy plan. And we should identify benefits to the local economy and businesses so that they can also be involved in the energy transition. And we should involve new actors such as local citizens so that they can be involved, but also we can get them to be involved in ownership as well, so they can invest money and be more interested in being involved in the energy system transition. So this brings us to the end of the webinar, and we would like you to, if you are a city employee and your city is interested in joining the SmartEnCity Network, then please follow the link here and sign up for a free membership in the network, where you can receive all sorts of interesting information and take part in workshops and collaborations as the project continues over the next 5 years. If you are not a city employee but you are interested in the SmartEnCity project, then you can sign up for the newsletter at this link, and you can receive the updates about the project and the project's activities going on in the next 5 years. And we'd like to thank you, and if you have any questions, please contact either Brian or me, David, at these email addresses below. The next webinars, I will just introduce them again. The next one will be in February in 2017 on city level energy planning, and after that we will have 3 or 4 more on energy supply and buildings, transport and citizen engagement, and these will all be done before the summer in 2017. And this is also free webinars. Thank you for your time, and we hope you enjoyed the webinar today.